On Wednesday, in response to revelations that emails had been released by Democrats regarding communications between rapist and sex trafficker of girls and young women Jeffrey Epstein and his co conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as between Epstein and pseudo journalist Michael Wolff, Caroline Leavitt appeared in the White House briefing room but did not address the issue, at least not until she was asked questions about it midway through the press conference. There was a bit of a bait and switch at the beginning as the press conference opened with Director of FBI Kash Patel talking about an alleged breakthrough deal with China. Levitt then made several misleading statements about topics completely unrelated to Jeffrey Epstein. The first question came from a British reporter. She asked about Donald's billion-dollar lawsuit against the BBC over what he claims was misleading editing of a show having to do with his role in January 6th. Here's the question.
So the clock is ticking on the Friday deadline by which the BBC must retract and apologise for their malicious edit of the President in the documentary shown last year. The recently resigned Director General of the BBC yesterday described the organisation as the very best of society and blamed the enemies of the BBC for this outcome. Also yesterday, a senior government minister launched a fierce defence of the channel in the House of Commons, saying that the broadcaster remains a light on the hill for people all over the world. So, does the President feel that the network is taking the situation seriously? Does he believe that they've shown sufficient regret? Does this strain the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister? And given that the organisation is publicly funded, is the President prepared to bankrupt the BBC in his pursuit of truth and justice?
Okay, that is not a real reporter, because a real reporter would not have characterized the situation the way that woman did. She, out of the gate, claims that the BBC maliciously edited this documentary. What she should have said is allegedly malicious editing, if she were a real reporter. Also, she frames the rest of this in a way that is biased. Has the BBC, in Donald's mind, shown sufficient regret? Which, again, leads us to believe that the BBC has something to regret. So we knew from the very beginning that this was not a press conference at all. It was just another opportunity for the Nazi propagandist Caroline Leavitt to engage in a lot of propaganda, to deflect and obfuscate, and of course, lie about why everybody was there. The Epstein emails that have been released. But it's important to put this in the context of what Donald has been doing since 2016. That is, undermining people's faith in the media. Caroline Leavitt actually confirmed that, in her view, Donald is correct to call all media outlets that disagree with him or challenge him or report the facts about his horrific behavior fake news. Also, anything negative about him is a hoax. Everything is rigged against him. All fault rests on the far left radical lunatic media, which cannot be trusted. And of course, that now includes the BBC. I did not watch this documentary. I don't know. But if the thrust of that documentary is that Donald incited an insurrection against his own government, that's factually accurate. But in Donald's view, in Leavitt's view, media can only be trusted if it says nice, positive things about him. This is a much larger project, and Caroline Leavitt is just the logical conclusion to everything that has come before. Donald, the entire Trump regime, everybody in the fascist Republican Party has been doing everything in their power to undermine our institutions and, in some cases, to dismantle our agencies altogether. They've done everything in their power to destroy norms and traditions, and they have engaged in an all-out assault on truth, fact, and history. Today, Donald is using his Department of Justice and his presidential pardon power to rewrite the history of January 6th, his involvement in it, and the results of the 2020 election. As CBS News reported, Donald pardoned dozens of his co conspirators who tried to overturn the election he legitimately lost to Joe Biden. In the White House press room, there is a woman who serves as nothing more than a taxpayer funded propagandist. What they're trying to do, and in many cases succeeding in doing, is poisoning the minds of enough Americans so that they are no longer capable of believing the evidence before their eyes, their lived experiences. Instead, they're becoming more inclined to believe what their leaders tell them rather than trusting their own experiences. We've seen this pattern since 2016, especially as it regards elections. I don't believe that Donald won the 2016 presidential election legitimately, but leaving aside Russian interference and James Comey's interference, et cetera, the reason he got into the Oval Office was because of the outdated and racist electoral college system, even though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. That result was not good enough for Donald because since then, he has continually relitigated that election, trying to convince people that millions of immigrants voted illegally for Hillary Clinton, which he claims is the only reason she won the popular vote. That's what an insecure loser he is. So, after losing the popular vote by an even larger margin, almost 8 million votes in 2020, it is not surprising that Donald has become even more dedicated to convincing people that the 2020 election was also rigged against him, especially since that time around, he lost the Electoral College and did not get into the Oval Office. But before we go on, Mary Trump Media is committed to preserving our democracy at all costs. So please like and share this video. And if you believe in our mission, please subscribe to our channel. This manipulation of reality serves several purposes. First, it protects Donald's weak ego and protects him from feeling fully the narcissistic injury he suffered after his 2016 popular vote loss and his complete loss in the 2020 election. But those wounds continue to have repercussions for all of us. Donald is hanging on to all of the grievance that's accumulated in the wake of those losses so that when 2028 comes around, he can claim that because he should have been president in 2020, but for the fact that Joe Biden stole the election from him, he should be able to run again. He did not have the opportunity to serve 2 consecutive terms, so therefore it doesn't count, and he should be able to serve a third. More troubling, however, is the extent to which a major part of the Trump regime's agenda is to destroy the American people's faith in facts. For example, their belief in the efficacy of safe vaccines, or the fact that any factually accurate reporting about Donald Trump is indeed not factually accurate unless it's complimentary to him. Perhaps the most concerning for the long-term health of our fragile democracy is the dedication of Donald and the Republican Party to undermine Americans' faith in free and fair elections, or even our ability to conduct them. None of this is accidental. It's all part of a larger strategy. They know that if people can be convinced not to believe in the reality in which they live, if they can be persuaded that their votes don't count or that an election isn't legitimate simply because Donald and the Republicans didn't win, then they can hold on to power for as long as they want, no matter how damaging that is to us, to our country, and to our democracy. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.